Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our LinkedIn Live session on exploring the revised Chartered Standard. First of all, a couple of introductions. So I'm Emily Long, I'm the Head of Professional Standards here at APM. And basically that just means that I'm responsible for the rigor and robustness of both our suite of qualifications and also the Chartered Standard. And I'm joined by my colleague, Vicky Bailey. And Vicky, do you want to just do a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Vicky Bailey. I am the product manager for the Chartered Standard and also our membership standards as well. Yeah, I'm there to ensure that everything remains robust and ticking along and ensure that all of the assessors and all the training and all things to make sure everything runs smoothly with the product is kept up to date. So that's my role.
Yeah, thank you. So the format for today, we've got a couple of slides to show you, and Vicky and I are just going to kind of discuss the key changes that we've introduced to the standard. We'll start also with a bit of an overview of what APM is, just in case anybody isn't aware who's listening in. And then it's really back over to you guys. What we're really keen to have is an interactive session, so it's a really good opportunity for you to post questions in the comments. We're going to go through those and Vicky's going to answer them the best she can. And so, yeah, it's just a good opportunity for people to have that open discussion. So without further ado, so for those of you that aren't necessarily as familiar with APM, this is just a bit of an introduction to us. We are the only chartered membership organisation for the project profession. It's something we're really proud of. I think the standard, Vicky, correct me if I'm wrong, has been going for about 5 years. And we have just over 3,000 chartered project professionals, which is awesome. In addition to delivering the Chartered Standard, we are a registered charity. And because of that, well, not because of that, but as a result of that, we are very interested in kind of sharing best practice, that kind of thought leadership piece about the project profession, and making sure that ultimately we are supporting kind of our mission statement, which is when projects succeed, society benefits. So there's a lot of intricacies within there, and the Chartered Standard is very much our kind of flagship product that we would want to encourage all project professionals to aspire to. So thinking about that standard, the current Chartered Standard is actually aligned to our Competence Framework 2nd edition. And last year, at the start of last year, we actually released the 3rd edition. And so it was actually a really great opportunity to look at our current Chartered Standard and take a bit of a review of that and align it to the Competence Framework 3rd edition. And within that, as well as kind of aligning the wording and aligning the competencies, we wanted to take the opportunity to really improve that applicant journey, to make it easier for you guys to understand what's needed, you know, what kind of resources are available. And then finally, we also wanted to look at the accessibility and inclusivity piece of the standard and make sure that it was a truly accessible standard for the project professional. So I have a set of questions for Vicky to kind of talk you through how we have done that and what that means for you. So first of all, Vicky, would you be able to kind of share with people watching who the standard is actually for, who would want to apply for the Chartered Standard?
Yeah, so the becoming a chartered project professional, we've made it inclusive. So it's not just for those that hold qualifications or have had any prior recognition. So it is, there's various different options for those that are on an experiential route or those that have actually progressed through getting qualifications. What we're very mindful of is that it's not just about project, program and portfolio managers. And this is the update that we've done to make sure it's inclusive to those that are a project professional. So more around sponsor roles or working in a PMO office. One of the sort of myths about chartership is that there is a minimum years requirement, which isn't actually the case. What we're more focused on is around your experience in project delivery and how you can identify that you meet our particular competence criteria and that you've implemented that into your own work. So it's for those that are aspiring to be chartered project professionals. This is also a really good benchmark for development, reaching out to your employees to ask for further responsibilities in other areas to be able to bring up that level of experience. So it is open to the project profession as long as you meet the eligibility criteria and are able to meet the competence criteria that we hold.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that's so crucial, isn't it? Because one of the things here at APM that we're really keen to promote is continued professional development. We want to make sure that we are supporting project professionals right from, when they sit maybe the project fundamentals qualification all the way through to chartered. And so what you said there about using it as a development tool is actually really relevant. So yes, you might not be in the position where you can actually apply for chartered right now, but there is no reason why you can't have a look at that application and start thinking, well, actually, I need to focus on this competence in my next year's review and the projects that I'm working on to be able to get to that level. So yeah, really, really nice kind of thought about that. Now, I know when we were running the project, Vicky, there was quite a lot of focus in terms of accessibility. Could you tell us a bit more about what improvements have been made to make the standard more accessible?
Yeah, so in terms of accessibility, we've looked at making sure that all of the information that's provided to you within the documents and on our website are written in plain English. They're concise to the specifications of what we're looking for. So we've tried to make that as clear as possible. We are continuing to develop those resources. So there will be visual aids as well. So we've got an e-learning module that you can progress through. So rather than just having everything in text, we've got visual elements and those that are audio as well. So just making sure that the information that we hold is accessible to everyone.
Brilliant, thank you. And then I've got a slight curveball question. So Vicky and I, obviously, before this session, had a bit of a chat about the things that we wanted to cover. But what I'm kind of curious about from your perspective is, what would you, if you had to single one improvement to the standard that the project has delivered, what would that be?
So I think it's about the sort of the openness to the project profession. So, we are very keen. This is a chartered project professional. It isn't a chartered project manager. So one of the key improvements that we've done is open up the competencies to reach out to more roles within the project profession. And we've done this by making the mandatory and elective competencies more accessible. So previously in the chartered standard, there was 10 mandatory competencies and 2 elective. What we've done is then actually changed that to be 5 electives. So if you are specific in a niche role or a sector, you've got that more openness within the electives to choose it, so it's more focused on you. And then with the mandatory competencies, we have 7, but we've got an or option. So we're very aware that there may be some crossover in roles, or you may focus on certain things. So the mandatory competencies, although you have to meet 7 of them, there is that level of flexibility to make sure it fits your role as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And so thinking about where we are at the moment, obviously the revised standard was published at the beginning of April. And so that's been online and people can go and view that and have a read through it. What's next for someone? So if someone's actually looking at that, what's the next steps that they need to take?
Absolutely. So we are opening the revised chartered standard for applications on September 18th. And what we've done, we're sort of mindful that individuals are getting ready to prepare for that opening of applications. We've actually created a document that you can start reviewing the guidance documentation and actually start putting down your evidence experience in a preparation document. We've also got a self-assessment tool. So again, if you're looking to see whether you feel that you're eligible to achieve chartership, we've got a self-assessment tool which is available in our guidance resources that supports individual in identifying whether they meet the eligibility criteria, or actually it identifies areas of development that they can work towards gaining that experience. So yeah, applications open in September. There is all the information available on our website to help you prepare and get ready for that. And yeah, as soon as we have a countdown clock on our website, so if you're ever unsure of when this is going to go live, then there is the information on our website.
But definitely a date for the calendar, the 18th of September to apply. Brilliant, thank you. Before we kind of move over to the questions that are coming in the chat, we've got kind of one more schematic to show you guys. And that is just a very kind of summary view of the Chartered Project Professional Standard. And I think most relevant in terms of thinking about your application is the fact that we do have those 3 routes into Chartered. Route 1 is if you have a recognised assessment which covers technical knowledge. So our own project professional qualification is classed as a Route 1 qualification. So if you have that, you can actually just be assessed on your professional practice because we recognise your technical knowledge has already been assessed. Route 2, similar, but that you have a recognised assessment for technical knowledge and professional practice. And then the Route 3 is the experiential route, where you don't have a recognised assessment, but you do meet the eligibility criteria. So all the information about those routes is on the website, including a list of organisations that we have a recognised assessment agreement with. So if you are thinking about applying, it's definitely kind of the first area to look at, isn't it, Vicky? That's the point where you start think about what you're going to be doing. So is there anything else that you'd like to share in terms of
so I just wanted to make individuals aware that are interested in applying for the Chartered Standard with the revised opening of application in September. We work alongside one particular accredited provider to support us in supporting individuals, and this is a free service that we provide. This comes in the form of 3 separate webinars. So you don't have to be a member of APM to attend. It's free to all. And what these webinars do is outline the process, support you in the information for applying. And then also there is a separate webinar for interview preparation. So these support services are what APM sort of accredit to support individuals. To make you aware as well, if you're a member of APM already, we do have a mentoring program, which you can also pair yourself with a like-minded individual that has possibly gone through the Chartered Standard already and have achieved it. So they can help you in providing support into coaching, mentoring. And we also have an e-learning module. So it kind of breaks down the guidance notes into more of a visual understanding. That'll be available. So there is quite a vast amount of free guidance that APM provides. There is obviously some other resources that APM don't actually accredit to deliver, but there is sort of that thing that there is free services that APM support individuals going through the Chartered Standard.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vicky. So I've just flicked on and I can see we've got a huge amount of comments coming through. So what I'm going to do is just turn off the slides and we can go through these comments. So the format for this is I'm just going to read them through and basically put Vicky on the spot and ask her some questions that are coming through. The first one, though, that I can answer actually is we're getting a lot through about if the session is going to be recorded. And I can confirm it has been recorded and we will be posting it on the relevant channels. So you will be able to kind of come back into this. So let's take a look at what's coming through.
It's nice to see individuals from different places all over the world and the UK. I hope the weather's shining after what we've had, a dreary, rainy start to our summer.
Okay, so sorry, apologies. This is a lesson in speed reading as well as anything else. So the first question that we've got through is, will chartership interviews continue to be held online or will they move back to being in person as in previous years?
Yeah, so chartered interviews will remain online. This is to make sure that we have the resources there to support you individually. obviously time and cost savings for yourselves in travel. So there is opportunity if you require, through reasonable adjustments, to have a face-to-face interview. We can manage that accordingly, but they will remain as virtual interviews online.
Thanks, Vicky. And I think you kind of touched on this, but just to reconfirm, do you have to be an APM member to access all this information and support?
No. So the main guidance documents are all available on the Chartered webpage. So that includes the application guidance that goes through the process from start to finish, eligibility through to what happens if you're successful at interview. We've also got the self-assessment tool, which is available to individuals, so you can help prepare your application and again, identify any areas of development. The webinar services are also free. They just need you to sign up and register on a GoTo platform. So that's all free. The membership benefits that we do hold are the e-learning module and also the mentoring program. So that's additional support as a member's benefit. Everything else is free to all to access.
Perfect. Thank you. We've got, I would assume that you will get a lot of applications in September for the new standard. Do you expect to maintain the timescales for written assessment, review and interview?
So depending on volume, so that is something that we specify on the website. It depends on volumes as to cycles. So the September cycle is quite a short one, so we can sort of manage that if we do have a lot of applications come through. Obviously, internally in the back office, we are preparing to get through the revised standard applications and also fulfill the applications that came through on the submission deadline for the last assessment cycle. So capacity wise, we're working to the best of our ability. We will be transparent with you depending on timescales. So if anything is going to, be pushed back, or if we have to adjust that in any way, then we will make that clear to you as an applicant.
Thank you. And then this question is kind of about the routes. So I'm due to finish a level 6 bachelor's degree in Feb 2025. Will I be able to apply through one of the routes for chartership?
So if you have a look at our recognised assessment, if it's listed on there, then you'd be able to progress through one of our recognised assessment routes for either route 1 or route 2. If it's not written under that, then you can still go through as an experiential applicant. So go through the route 3 route. It's still dependent on whether it's being recognised by APM as a recognised assessment.
Perfect. Thank you. One moment. Is there a brief summary of the changes from the previous chartered standard, as someone asking was partway through an application on route 3?
Okay, so we haven't done a like-to-like comparison because there's been many terminology changes between the second edition of the competence framework and the third edition. I think one thing to note is there has been changes to the competence criteria. So the information may not be transferable from a previously started application to what it is now. So it's around having a look at that information and doing the cross comparison between the competencies now and the criteria to what it was then. But unfortunately, because it's such a vast amount of information, there isn't a sort of like for like comparison document that we can do, unfortunately.
Perfect. Thank you. This is an interesting one. This is in terms of assessment of professional practice, would you say that this evidence has to come from experience exclusive to PMOs or traditional project management practice, like is common to public sector organizations? Or can you demonstrate this if you have the competencies can be demonstrated through smaller projects like the kind overseas that manage small scale social enterprise? Sorry, that was quite a long question. So are we limited to kind of projects within the public sector, or can it be from a wide range of projects?
No, certainly it can be from a wide range of So we're not looking at anything in particular in a nutshell, as you'd say. So there is eligibility criteria for a project. So there's different characteristics that a project must fulfill for it to be a successful project to use. That information is provided in our guidance documentation. So, if you're working on a project, what we ask for a level of complexity, which is outlined in the characteristics. So depending on what project you've been working on, then if you have a look and see if you can identify evidence against the characteristics, then it is a successful project to use to progress with an application.
Thank you. Sorry, I feel like I'm interrogating you reading all these questions, but there's so many comments that have come through, which is great.
Yeah, that's fine.
So one question is the APM PMQ, so the project management qualification, required to become a chartered project professional?
At the moment, it's not a recognised assessment. APM's project professional qualification is a route 3 to route 1. So that is the progression route 3 qualification. So the PMQ, the project management qualification, and the PPQ, the project professional qualification, that is our route into chartership currently.
Thank you. And for the experiential route, what is the minimum number of years a PM needs to be capable of passing the chartership?
There's no minimum years requirement. So it's all about yourself and your experience and how you are able to meet the competence criteria. So we haven't put a specific number on how many years experience you need, but you have to be able to demonstrate that you are competent in project delivery in your experience. And also, if you're going through the experiential route, we are looking for you to identify technical knowledge ability as well. So not just the things you put into practice, but other methods and ways of working as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. And how long, I mean, this is a tricky question because I guess it is very individual, but how long would you say the process to apply takes?
This is definitely an individual circumstance. It's all dependent on how much time and availability you have yourself, how much time you can give to that outside of work, in your own time, in your break. So it is all very much dependent on an individual circumstance. If you have time to sort of do sections and then sort of go away and think about it and then come back, that is also a possibility. But there isn't a sort of minimum amount of time, and I don't think the longest either. So it's all down to you and how you feel comfortable. It's a lot of information, so we appreciate it's not something that you'd be able to fulfill overnight and will take time, but it's all individual to yourself.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big things that we saw during the project, right, Vicky, in terms of how long to give people to adjust to the revised standard before we open up applications. And very anecdotally, people were saying to us, it takes me about 6 months by the time I get, and it doesn't mean 6 months of constant writing. It was just that we understand that you are all, busy project professionals. And so it's kind of almost like you dip in and dip out of it as and when, but definitely kind of the market research showed that people spend, anything up to about 6 months to write the application. And we've got a message about, is there a cost to the application process?
Yeah, so there is cost depending on which route. So there is difference in cost depending on which journey you will take, depending on previous recognised assessments. All of our fee structures are outlined on the website. So that under each route will provide you with the fee structure for that application process.
Perfect. And we've got a question about if someone has PMQ plus 9 years experience, would they be appropriate? Would they meet the appropriate criteria for route 2? So I think maybe if we could just go through again those routes in terms of how they are set up, Vicky.
Yeah, so for PMQ isn't a recognised assessment currently. So in this circumstance, it would be around your 9 years experience. So it would be through a route 3. So route 1 is for anyone that has a recognised assessment against technical knowledge. So they've done either a qualification or a degree which meets the technical knowledge criteria of the Chartered Standard. Then we have route 2, which is you've already met the criteria of the professional practice and technical knowledge competencies. And there's a different assessment method which goes into more of your continual personal development and having a look how they align to our mandatory competencies, and that's done through an interview. And then you've got the experiential route. So for those that don't have a recognised assessment that is already registered and would have to use their experience to get through that process.
Thank you. Now, there's a couple of questions about CPD, so I'm going to kind of combine them together, and hopefully it covers it. And I should also note, if I have missed any questions, or when we run out of time, we get a log of all these questions, so we will make sure that we come back to you on them, so that they're not kind of like lost in the ether. But there's a question about CPD and APM CPD, and whether that has to be used to fulfill the CPD requirement of chartership, or can it be CPD that they already have logged with their employer, for example?
So the requirement of CPD for chartership is it has to be project related, and it is more about your taking away from your learning. So what you've done is around that reflective statement about what you've done as part of your CPD, you've taken away. So whether that bit is an internal process, it doesn't have to be APM's sort of webinars or talks, anything like that. It's anything that you do where you've managed to take something away from it. We have our own CPD template that you can use, but again, if you're using something internally at your organisation, you can also use that. We just ask that you fulfil the CPD requirements for chartership. One of the areas that a lot of individuals don't put onto their CPD logs is about that additional 12 months of what you want to do next. So we're looking for what you've already done and what you've taken away, but also what you're looking to do to develop yourself further over the next 12 months.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, this is very specific to the revisions to the standard. So we have a comment about the concern that it's actually less accessible for general PMs. And I'm going to read it verbatim. It's a bit of a long comment, so just bear with me. So previously, more of the criteria was suitable for general project managers, and only 2 electives, more specialist aspects, had to be selected. Now it seems that more specialism is needed, i.e. you need to select 5 elective competencies from 16, many of which general PMs won't have experience in. And the kind of question is, have I got that wrong? Has the candidate got that wrong?
Yeah, so in terms of what we have mandatory and elective, we have opened up the mandatory. So there was a lot of crossover between the mandatory competencies in the standard that was. So we've aligned what you've got as project professional competencies that you can choose an and or. So then you've got the opportunity. The electives have obviously grown because the mandatory ones have changed. So it's around you in your role looking to those electives to see what you fulfill on a day-to-day basis. So we're looking for that core evidence as a project professional from mandatory competencies.
Yeah.
And then making it accessible with those electives.
I think probably the key distinguishing there, isn't it, is that they're electives, they're not specialisms. Yeah. They're elective competencies. So actually there should be absolutely within those electives ones that a project manager could respond to. And in fact, there definitely is. So it might just be worth going through that the new standard again online and just having a look at what those actually entail. Okay. Great question about the period of time that you can apply for the chartered standards. So I've got someone here that has been on maternity leave, also furlough. We know that affected a lot of people. Can the sample projects extend beyond a 5-year period?
Absolutely. So what we ask, if it is over 5 years, that you provide a professionally active statement. So what we'd like to see is against your application, if projects are 5 years or over, then you provide a statement which shows how you've maintained your professionally active. So what have you done to keep up to date with certain practices and methods to ensure that that comes through? So yeah, absolutely, we can use historic projects depending on your circumstances, but you will have to just update. Maternity wise, I'm sure at the forefront, you know, keeping up to date with methods and practices isn't at the forefront of your new journey. So we do have obviously different requirements that we can support you with if that's an individual circumstance.
Perfect. There's a couple of questions, and again, kind of lumping them together in terms of why we don't recognise a particular qualification or a particular program. So just to put it all together in one, we will recognise an assessment when that organisation applies for recognised assessment, as opposed to us going through all different kind of programs and things and qualifications and recognising them. So it would be very much down to that awarding organisation to apply for that recognised assessment for them to be on that list. One second. So do most people complete the PMQ exam, or if they have prior experience have worked through the PMQ study guide and are familiar with the BOK, just move on to the PPQ prep and exam?
It's not a requirement, so I can't specify whether that has been a journey for all individuals. Again, that's a personal choice of your own, whether you want to go through those routes and then through to PPQ and route 1 of the standard. But again, that is why we have the route 3 accessibility, because we don't expect everyone to go through a qualifications route to get to the level of chartership. If it's something that you're working to aspire to, then definitely, obviously, we've got the qualification suites that can gain your knowledge and understanding of practices and methods, and again build up on time with your professional experience, and you can progress. But if you currently feel that you're eligible to achieve chartership, then rather than do a qualification, you can go through the route 3 experiential route.
Which is so important, isn't it? Because one of the things, if you weren't here at the beginning, one of the things we highlighted is actually chartership in project management is quite new. So it's been running for about 5 years, whereas project management and the project profession in more general terms has been going a lot longer, right? So we do absolutely appreciate that for some people, a qualification isn't on their journey. They're already at that level, and actually to do something like the project management qualification, even the project professional qualification, just isn't suitable for them. They have a vast amount of experience that means that they can demonstrate that competency for chartered. Just one final question, because it came up a few times, is around the cost, and people are querying why there is cost differentials between route 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so the routes have different timescales. So route 1 is a written submission, which is the same as route 3. However, if successful, when you go through to interview, it's an hour process to go through the interview process, whereas route 3 is a 2-hour process. So obviously there's different cost implications to how much resource we have, external stakeholders with our assessors, their time and commitment to do that. With route 2, it's a half an hour interview, and there's only required with 1 interview assessor. So again, there's less resource that's required in that process. So the difference in the cost is around the resource for that route and what is required.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vicky. And I think we're just nearly up on time, which kind of leaves me, first of all, to say thank you so much for all the questions and comments that have come through. It's really interesting to see people's different kind of things that they've not quite understood about the process, or the questions that they've got, and that really helps us If I haven't been able to get to all the comments, we will absolutely go through them and make sure that we have a reply for each one. And also, we are going to publish this on our relevant channels, so you can come back and watch it as a recording. As Vicky said, the applications for the revised standard will open on the 18th of September. And if you haven't already done so, we would strongly encourage you to start looking at that standard now and going through those different resources that Vicky has highlighted. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us today, and a huge thank you to Vicky for agreeing to be put on the spot and, and interrogated on this session. It would also be remiss of me not to thank everyone at APM that has worked on the Chartered Review project. It has been approximately about a year project and has involved all different areas of the business, including our colleagues in service innovation, our colleagues in marketing, and of course our colleagues in our portfolio team as well. And it has been a great demonstration of interdepartmental working. So just a massive thank you from us to them for that. So I hope you found this session useful. And if you do have any questions, do please feel free to reach out to us. We are obviously always here to support you. And thank you and have a great afternoon.